fast forward to 2025, and they're running the exact same playbook. Charlie Kirk was assassinated in broad daylight, and they immediately deployed their troops to criminalize asking questions.
What are you supposed to take from the everyone? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think the implication was dramatic, and then I think a lot of people reading the tweets would assume that she meant Erica Kirk.
Stubborn quiet that Candace Owens says has followed her from the second she heard that Charlie Kirk had been assassinated in broad daylight. To her, everything that happened afterward looked less like grief and more like a psychological operation designed to pressure the public into silence. She compares it directly to Operation Mockingbird, the CIA letter's infamous propaganda campaign, and insists that this moment, this death, this chaos, this sudden push to shut down questions is its modern version. She calls it Operation Mocking-Plane, a name born not only from the Egyptian plane she tracked, but from the way journalists, influencers, pastors, insiders, and institutions immediately circled around the narrative and demanded everyone stop asking questions. For Candace Owens, that was the first sign something was deeply wrong. When people rush to control a narrative before the facts are even known, she believes they're revealing exactly what they're afraid of. In the days after Charlie Kirk died, the voices that should have been comforting or mourning instead all repeated the same strange script. Pastor Rob McCoy told Christians not to speculate and not to ask anything that might disturb the grieving process, as if questions themselves were sinful. Mikey delivered a story about being covered in blood, despite eyewitness accounts later claiming he never entered the hospital at all. Ben Shapiro, Stephen Crowder, and influencers aligned with Turning Point USA began attacking Candace Owens, twisting her words, accusing her of implying that Erica Kirk murdered her husband, even though she had said nothing of the sort. She watched people she once believed were truth seekers behave like narrative managers, like handlers deployed to calm the public, steer them away from red flags, and protect certain people from suspicion. Every time she raised a simple question, they responded with spiritual guilt trips.
I have no regrets.
So when I saw this moment, I was just thinking about myself and my a lot of emotions and grieving that I have experienced. I don't know how the executives over at Charlie Kirk USA sleep at night. Okay. I don't know how you can present yourselves as a Christian organization and not be dedicating yourself to the truth.
Warnings about building empires, accusations of hurting the family, or demands that she remain silent. For the sake of unity, to her, it wasn't compassion, it was coordinated fear. What hit Candace Owens the hardest was how quickly the people closest to Charlie Kirk tried to erase the depth of their friendship. They suddenly minimized her relationship with him right when she began asking what happened. She says they did that because they feared she would investigate, push back, refuse to be controlled, and refused to swallow the narrative they were selling. She believed that Charlie Kirk, with his photographic memory, plane obsession, sharp instincts, and unmatched ability to connect patterns, would have recognized something suspicious the moment he landed, especially if the Egyptian aircraft were already familiar to him. And if he recognized something, he would have followed it. If he followed it, he would have uncovered it, and if he uncovered it, then someone somewhere had a motive to panic. Then came the financial anomalies while she was being mocked online for pointing out plane activity. Candace Owens discovered that 3 of the 4 required financial statements for Turning Point USA were missing, not late, not pending, but completely unfiled. She found out that $6 million had been routed into a shell entity called America's Turning Point that reported 0 employees yet showed millions in salary expenses. She learned that staffing had decreased by 33% while salary costs had mysteriously gone up. She learned that Charlie Kirk had been concerned about where the money was going and where it was coming from, and that he requested a new audit just days before he died. She connected that with the fact that the organization had missed not only the original IRS deadline but also the extension deadline. What she found didn't look accidental, it looked deliberate. It looked like someone inside Turning Point USA was moving money, hiding documents, and hoping no one noticed until they fixed things quietly behind the scenes. But they didn't count on Charlie Kirk noticing, and they definitely didn't count on Candace Owens noticing. That he noticed the behavior of Erica Kirk raised even more alarms for her. 8 days after burying her husband, Erica became CEO of Turning Point USA. She wasn't previously in an operational leadership position. She wasn't known to be inside the executive chain, yet suddenly she was chairman and CEO of a $100 million organization in the middle of a storm. Candace Owens questioned how someone could take on that role while grieving, unless the transition was already arranged.
Either Erica Kirk is evil and was in on it, Post-Charlie, there was so much unity, so much excitement, so much resurgence in faith and newfound interest in faith, and that now there is discord, so many distractions, and that is just like Satan, who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He is called the great accuser. He is the sower of discord, the author of confusion.
What created even more unease was the discovery that the Egyptian planes had tracked Erica Kirk 73 times in 3 years across multiple states. And even overseas, Candace didn't say Erica was involved in Charlie's death, but she did question why Turning Point USA never acknowledged that the planes were familiar, why they stayed silent when she was being attacked, why they let the world mock her, when they could have simply said, yes, the planes have been near us, before their silence felt like a massive omission, and omissions to her are a form of lying. When Candace Owens mentioned the Egyptian plane for the first time, she got the time zone wrong by 2 hours. That was her mistake, nothing more, but the internet erupted instantly. Anonymous accounts, influencers, media pages, Christian voices, and Turning Point insiders all piled on with a speed she found unnatural, manufactured, and strategic. She says they didn't just try to debunk her, they tried to humiliate her, distort her words, and build a wall of noise before she could reveal anything else. It wasn't a debunk. It was a pre-bunk tactic where the opposition attacks something before it gains traction to scare people away from believing it, and the moment she saw how fast they moved, she knew they were protecting something. It wasn't about Egypt. It wasn't about the plane. It wasn't about her tweet. It was about what the existence of that plane might reveal about who knew what. And the deeper Candace Owens went into the details surrounding Charlie Kirk's final day, the more she realized that nothing was ordinary, nothing was random, and nothing matched the story the public was told. She fixated on the Egyptian military planes not because it sounded dramatic, but because the data she gathered, transponder logs, timestamps, airport records, and the obsessive research of her mommy sleuths showed a pattern she couldn't ignore. The blue plane with the tail number and the yellow plane with the tail number weren't fantasies. They were verifiably in places they shouldn't have been. The biggest discovery came when a pregnant sleuth emailed her saying she had spent 15 hours investigating and realized the planes hadn't been tracking Charlie Kirk, they had been tracking Erica Kirk. When Candace Owens verified the spreadsheet, she found 68 confirmed overlaps, later bringing the number to 73. And 29 of those overlaps also included Charlie. This wasn't coincidence, this wasn't random, this wasn't chance. These were foreign military aircraft appearing again and again around the same woman. For Candace Owens, this discovery alone made Turning Point USA letter's silence feel sinister. The moment she revealed the plane data publicly, the attacks intensified. She saw anonymous accounts appear, instantly correcting her to our time zone mistake. As if they were waiting, she noticed influencers push a false claim that she accused Erica of murder even though she never said it. She watched Steven Crowder distort a clip from her book club to imply something she didn't. And she saw how Ben Shapiro repeated the same narrative designed to discredit her before she could expose anything else, accusation almost verbatim, as if he had been handed talking points. To Candace Owens, these were not misunderstandings. They were synchronized efforts to shut her down before she could explain what she uncovered. What terrified her was not the attacks, but how fast and uniform they were. It felt like a script, a coordinated push, a pre-bunk operation meant to destroy credibility instead of addressing facts. And she began asking the one question no one in Turning Point USA wanted to answer: why were these Egyptian military planes so familiar to them, and why did they react with panic instead of clarity? Her suspicions grew when she reviewed the timeline of the planes on the day Charlie Kirk was shot. The blue Egyptian plane never took off, but its transponder powered on at Duncan Aviation in Provo. According to the data her team pulled, it transmitted from 9:05 a.m. to 10:34 a.m., then powered on again exactly 17 minutes after Charlie was shot, transmitting from 12:40 p.m. to 1:29 p.m. while never moving from its parking spot. The idea that this was coincidence or routine maintenance felt absurd to her, especially knowing a foreign military plane would have encrypted satellite communications, the perfect place for untraceable calls. She emphasized she was not making accusations, but insisted Turning Point USA owed the public an explanation for why they recognized the plane and why they let her be mocked. Their silence felt like complicity. The strangest part, however, came from people, not planes. Andrew Covett, a Turning Point spokesperson, told her in the hospital that there was a credible threat against her and Tucker Carlson, and they should lay low. When she asked who the threat came from, he gave number answer, and no agency ever contacted her, not the FBI, not DHS, not local authorities. How could a threat be serious enough for insiders to warn her privately, but not serious enough for officials to notify her? Why would Turning Point staff know before the people supposedly in danger, and why did Andrew tell her? He witnessed something specific on the Provo tarmac that keeps replaying in her mind. She did not reveal the detail but called it critical. Then another twist appeared: a separate plane with tail number N560W flew from Scottsdale to Provo. On the morning of September 10th landed, then immediately flew to Santa Barbara and returned to Scottsdale. Candace wondered whether someone was picked up, dropped off, or whether someone at these airports saw something without realizing it mattered. She urged airport workers, students, hotel staff, anyone nearby to check phones, photos, and memories. She even released for license plates of rental cars that Duncan Aviation allegedly sourced for the Egyptians, insisting someone captured something: a car, a person, a timestamp. That could change everything, but the darkness did not end in the air. It sank into the finances. Turning Point USA had missing 990 forms unexplained, transfers, and $8.6 million rooted into a shell entity reporting 0 employees. Yet millions in salary expenses. She did not say it outright, but implied ghost payrolls, fake employees, fake salaries, real money disappearing. She noted Charlie Kirk requested a new audit a week before his death, and he worried not only about where the money was going but where it was coming from. She pointed out Turning Point USA raised over $70 million in donations in the weeks after he died, a staggering sum that made her question who benefited from him being gone. By the time Candace Owens finished, she made her stance clear. She believes snakes are inside Turning Point USA. People who lied, hid documents, misled the public, and panicked the moment she uncovered the Egyptian planes. She said she would reveal more the next day, insisting that this decentralized investigation, powered by mothers, researchers, volunteers, and sleuths, was closer than ever to exposing the truth. For her, this was not just about Charlie, it was about justice, betrayal, power, and the way evil people hide behind religion, reputation, and influence. And she ended with one promise: she was not backing down, not now, not ever, not ever.